Welcome to my reaction to the first CFP poll of the 2021 season. It's finally here. No more speculation, no more guesswork. This one's official. This one's not hearsay. This one's here to stay. Yeah, I like that. That was good. That was good. Anyhow, we've got the first official college football playoff poll of the season is out. This is the starting block that will determine the next half of this season, or we're actually past the halfway point here, but the last third of this season as teams push down the stretch towards the playoff and the New Year's Six. Both of those huge goals at the end of the tunnel. Playoffs for mostly the Power Five to shoot for, with Cincinnati in a position to also contend for it, and then the New Year's Six Group of Five rep to the New Year's Six Bowl, where the rest of the teams in the Group of Five shooting for that one. So this is just my initial reaction video to it. I just saw the poll results a little while ago. Came out while I was making my last video, so I jotted down some notes. I'm not going to make this video too long. This is just kind of initially reaction to the results that came out, comparing versus the AP poll, and looking at my initial thoughts on this first poll. So let's just jump right into it then. Initial reaction, right out the gate, this is the best CFP poll that I have ever seen. It's not perfect, but it is definitely the best one I've ever seen after the last 2 years, which are just absolute atrocities, especially last season's poll. In fact, last season's poll following up after the season before that, so the 2020 poll following up the 2019 season, those two polls were so bad, and the 2021 especially polls were so bad that I actually made a video discussing why we should get rid of the College Football Playoff Committee. And I still stand by that. I think I have a solution that would be better than the current format, and I'll put the link, it was a video from a while ago, but I'll put the link in the remarks section of this video. However, this poll, this committee, and that's the issue with committees, is you get different results year to year because you got different biases you're working with. This committee has found a way to work through all of the biases, to get to the root of the problem, to not be swayed by the AP voters, to get to the real heart of the matter for these teams and which teams truly deserve to be getting into the rankings, into position, into battle contention for these two big trophies, the CFP, of course, and then the New Year's Six. They finally found a way, this season at least, to get there in a way that is not biased and actually presents what the teams are worth and not what those teams promote themselves as being. So it's like a fresh poll. It's like the AP poll never even existed. I mean, the differences between these polls are jarring. You have 6 teams that weren't even ranked in the AP poll that made it into the top 25 here. 2 Mountain West teams that moved up. San Diego State when they were out in the AP poll. The AAC lost 2 teams from the AP poll. Only Cincinnati remains. Cincinnati moves back. Oklahoma moves back. We'll talk about all that in a second. But this is just an amazing poll, just for the fact that it is so radically different from the AP polls. The last polls, there were differences. There were some major differences, but overall they looked, pretty similar. This poll, not at all. This is a brand new, and it's exactly what the committee was designed for. The committee was designed to, like a jury selection. You're not supposed to have read the news or developed thoughts on the case before you come into it. Just based purely on the play that has happened in front of them in that season, not based on any of the rankings, not based on any of the speculation, not based on any of the hype, just purely based on the performance on the field, and that is what this committee presented us. So second here, goodbye East Coast bias. BYU up 2 slots, up from number 17 in the AP poll up to number 15 in the CFP poll. Well deserved after beating 5 Power 5 teams this season. Only loss is to Baylor, who is themselves in the top 15 here. And then Boise State, not a Power 5 team, but a rivalry game. Anything can happen in a rivalry game. And Boise State Broncos, obviously they're not in the poll, and I don't think they deserve to be in the poll this season. But Broncos are a lot better than that 4-4 record. There's been a lot of very, very close games that could have gone either way. 2 of them, they should be sitting here at 6-2, if not for some refereeing decisions in the Air Force and Oklahoma State game. Regardless, this is a good BYU team who deserves to be in the top 15, as they are able to overcome that East Coast bias. But not just BYU, the Mountain West. Last week, the Mountain West had a massive matchup between Fresno State and San Diego State. The two, in my opinion, once you get past Cincinnati, the two top teams in the group of 5 right now. And not just in my opinion, pretty much Sports Illustrated, of course ESPN, who runs Sports Illustrated. I think there was an article by The Atlantic. There are a ton of different sources out there right now that are saying that the Mountain West is the best group of 5 conference in the country this year. I've been saying they're the best group of 5 conference in the country the last few years, but this year I'm actually getting backed up on that by other people as well. One magazine actually rated the Mountain West is better than the Pac-12. So the Mountain West, best conference in the country, a matchup between a undefeated San Diego State team and a 2-loss Fresno State team, with one of those losses being to a top 10 team in Oregon. That should mean something, especially when that team has also beaten UCLA. That should mean something, but it was at 10:15 p.m. Nobody watched the game. AP voters next day looked at the scores, went, oh man, Fresno State won. We'll put them in, San Diego State out. Oh, who's this? SMU and Houston, who haven't played anybody all year. SMU has basically the same record as San Diego State, except that they have less Power 5 wins, so lesser of a record. They lost to Houston. You know what? We're not going to drop SMU out because it proved they weren't worthy. We're going to put both of them into the top 25. Every single year, you see the AAC propped up by the East Coast bias, by the voters, by the fact that they promote themselves as the Power 6, regardless of whether or not the facts back that up. And every single year, despite the fact that the Mountain West has more head-to-head wins, more Power 5 wins, and more bowl wins, the AAC gets put in over the Mountain West in the AP polls and in the CFP. Well, not this year. I don't know who they picked to be the voters this year, but whoever they did should have a permanent staff position at the CFP, because they have found a way to overcome that East Coast bias. If you don't understand what East Coast bias is, real quick summary: Mountain West teams and Pac-12 teams as well. Pac-12 also gets crapped on all the time because nobody watches their games. Nobody watches their games because they're so late at night. Also, those fan bases on the mountain side of things, Mountain West, Pac-12, they have numerically, they're not in massive, for the most part, they're not in massive industrial areas or massive cities, that kind of thing. So their fan bases are much smaller than on the East Coast. The fan bases there, even smaller schools have pretty big fan bases on the East Coast. So they have a lot more pull. They have a lot more people who have biases towards them within the media, within the voters, and they get a lot more attention. Also, the AAC projects itself as a Power 6 conference, which pulls in with that biases, gets elevated. Then there you have East Coast bias pushing up teams that don't deserve to be ranked over teams that are playing really great and playing great against each other and playing great out of conference. Mountain West and Pac-12, both good conferences, but they don't get any respect because nobody watches their games. However, this College Football Playoff Committee is taking their job seriously. They are obviously watching all the games like you should. They are staying up late. They are East Coast games. On the East Coast, if you're watching that game from San Diego State, you were up till about 2 a.m. And I respect that from this voting staff because they are doing what needs to get done. They are watching all the games. They are knowing what these teams are capable of. They are actually putting the on-field performance and not just the media hype of these teams into the polls. So outstanding jobs. So first off, best poll ever, in my opinion. Secondly, goodbye East Coast bias, which has been the plague, been really the most impacting issue since we got rid of the BCS, has been that East Coast bias. There is hope if CFP committees can continue to establish themselves like this one has. There is hope that this system, even though I think it's not necessarily the best, there is hope that this system can produce a fair results and can get the Mountain West into the position it deserves to be year after year, which is top conference in the group of 5, which I was worried that with the way the Sun Belt was shaking out, the Sun Belt would just capitalize on the East Coast bias and take over. But the Mountain West, if they can continue to perform like they have done over the last 10 years, combine that with voters who actually watch their games, there's some good things ahead for the Mountain West Conference. All right, third here, big day for the ACC. Huge day for the ACC. 2 teams that were not ranked get into the rankings. You know what this means? In addition to Wake Forest moving up 1 slot to be in the top 10, this makes Wake Forest a legitimate contender for the playoffs. Even if Wake Forest had gone undefeated, I didn't think it was likely that they would get into that top 4. Even if they were undefeated, won the ACC championship, I still didn't think that they would get into the top 4 because of how weak the ACC was. If you look at this AP poll, There's not a single other ACC team in it besides Wake Forest. They are the only other ACC team in the top 25. And the ACC has been the weakest or one of the weaker conferences in the Power 5 this year. But that's unquestionable. But the fact that they were able to get 2 teams into the top 25, not just top 25, Pittsburgh here at 25, but top 20 with NC State coming in at 20, means that Wake Forest, if they go undefeated, will have wins over both of them. They still have to play NC State, and then they'll probably face Pittsburgh in the ACC championship game. If they play and beat both of those teams, they'll have top 25 wins. They'll have a win over Clemson. They will have a resume that looks strong enough to get into the top 4. So this makes the ACC a legitimate contender to get into the playoffs, makes Wake Forest a legitimate contender, and brings the ACC back into the conversation. They have only missed one playoff appearance since 2014. So this would be an amazing job for Wake Forest. If they can go undefeated, ACC still has hope. Fourth here, I got my numbers mixed up. Unlike the CFP poll, who got all their numbers correct this time. All right, so fourth here, head-to-head plays heavy at the top. So a little bit weird to see Fresno State in over San Diego State. And I messed that up. And I'm sorry. What I meant to say was Fresno State, of course. Fresno State beat San Diego State, so that's why they're in. Yes. All right, so head-to-head plays heavy at the top and at the bottom here. Fresno State beat San Diego State. Obviously, that's the one loss that San Diego State has there. Sorry for the blunder. Fresno State beat San Diego State, so they're in, even though San Diego State has only one loss compared to Fresno's. Fresno also pulled ahead by Oregon. That's the next team we're going to talk about. Oregon with the head-to-head win over Ohio State, even though their loss is worse than Ohio State's loss. There with Oregon losing, they lost to Stanford, I think. It was not a very good team out of the Pac-12, whichever team it was, unranked. Whereas Ohio State's loss is to a ranked Oregon team. That head-to-head, which has always played big in committees' views, that plays big in this one. Oregon moves up from number 7 to number 4. Ohio State drops from number 6 ahead of Oregon to number 5 just behind Oregon. So it only would take one slip up by Oregon. Ohio State, big win over Penn State last week. They get some more big wins here. They go out, they beat Michigan, they beat Michigan State. Those are going to probably elevate potentially Ohio State over Oregon, because Oregon just doesn't, the Pac-12 just doesn't have the other teams that Oregon can go beat up to compete with Ohio State in that realm. But right now, even though Ohio State has a better resume, Oregon still holds the head-to-head. And depending on this committee, every committee has a little bit of a different feel. This might be the head-to-head committee. This might be the one that no matter what Ohio State does, if Oregon doesn't drop a loss, they're the team that gets in because they own that head-to-head, which obviously they are factoring as important. Oklahoma State ahead of Baylor, they own the head-to-head there. Like I said, Fresno State over San Diego State, they own the head-to-head there. And obviously Michigan over Michigan State over Michigan, which they deserve to be because they're undefeated. But you get the point here. The head-to-head is playing key. So that'll be something interesting to watch as we go throughout the rest of the season. But great to see the East Coast bias eliminated, at least for now, and head-to-head coming in big, because that is a majorly important factor that has always been important with the CFP, but sometimes has been overlooked. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. But that's really justice there. If you've beaten a team, as long as you both have the same record, if you've beaten that team, you should be ahead of that team. It's kind of the biases that kind of propel teams ahead of others that they own those wins over. Most times. Okay, here though, this is big, and I've been advocating for this every single week. I was doing a weekly review video, but I wasn't getting a lot of views, so I stopped doing that. But I was doing a weekly review video, and I was talking about why is Oklahoma staying in the top 4? Why are they continuing to move up when every single week they are basically getting this close to losing to a nobody every single week? I mean, last week they beat Texas Tech pretty nicely, but every other week, I mean, they almost lost to Kansas. So, and they almost at the beginning of the season almost lost to Tulane. So every single week they are not showing medical improvement. In fact, they had to bench their Heisman candidate quarterback. This is not a great Oklahoma team. It's a lucky Oklahoma team that is going to take a loss at some point. Why are they continuing to move up? They should be getting punished for their poor performances. Well, the committee agreed. They finally did it. They moved Oklahoma from 4th to 8th. If Oklahoma State doesn't shore up their game, if they don't start winning some teams convincingly, it doesn't matter if they go undefeated. They will be out of the playoffs here at this point. Cincinnati, while a team that I think deserves to be in the playoff race, I absolutely think they deserve to be in the playoff race, which they are, sitting here at number 6. A group of 5 team has never opened this high in the CFP, so they are in the playoff race. Their last 2 performances, with a close win against Tulane and a close win against Navy, I think I had those in the right order, but those are the 2 teams they played, with close wins against both of those terrible programs, did not deserve to remain at number 2 like they did in the AP poll. They deserve to fall a little bit, and they are deservedly sitting here at number 6. I think if they'd beaten those teams convincingly, we would be seeing a Cincinnati team that was in the top, was at least number 5 and probably number 4 if they had beaten those teams convincingly, but they didn't. They're showing weakness. They are starting to slip, and if, again, just like Oklahoma, if they don't win convincingly out the rest of the season, they're not going to control their own destiny. They don't really, obviously they don't control their own destiny right now, but even if they're facing some teams here which take a loss, they're still not going to be in if they don't start winning convincingly. This should be a huge wake-up call for the Sooners and for the Bearcats here to get their game on track after the AP has given them so much leniency over the last few weeks. And then finally, Conference USA remains a black hole. Some of you might have just watched my video where I was talking about Liberty. I'm not going to go on that spiel right now, but there are people out there who are advocating for Liberty University to join Conference USA. And one of the comments that's being brought up is, well, you know, if Liberty goes out and dominates, and just so you know, Liberty's my second school, Boise State and Liberty fan here. So if Liberty goes out and dominates Conference USA, goes undefeated, you know, they can work their way into the college football playoff ranking, into the rankings. They can become a contender for that New Year's Six. They can work their way. Some people even said to the playoffs, but they can get into bigger and better things if they go undefeated. Well, UTSA is sitting here undefeated, has a win over a Power 5 team, and they at 8-0 are not anywhere to be seen in this ranking, and in fact have, let's see here, 2 3-loss programs. Yeah, 2 3-loss programs, multiple 2-loss programs here. 2 group of 5 schools in the top 20-25 range ranked ahead of them. Of course, if you count Cincinnati, you got 3 group of 5 schools ranked ahead of them. UTSA is nowhere in the conversation, and honestly is unlikely to even get into the conversation if they go undefeated this year. So let's put that argument to bed, that if Liberty can go undefeated in Conference USA, as long as they have some good matchups at the beginning of the season. No. If you play in Conference USA, the way the CFP committee looks at you is, say you have 4 good non-conference matchups, well, they look at you as being 4-0, regardless of what the rest of your record is, as long as you don't have a loss. If you have a loss, you're 4-1. But if you have wins on that record, you might as well have been playing some Division III school, because the rest of the schools in that conference are garbage, and especially with the realignment. So let's put that conversation to bed. Here's UTSA at 8-0, number 16 AP poll, nowhere to be seen in the College Football Playoff Bowl. And it's not going to get better if your school's name is Liberty University, with all the other biases that are attached to that. So that's my initial reactions to the CFP poll. It looks like it's going to be a great season here. Finally, a CFP committee that seems to know generally what they're talking about. It'll be great to see what happens down the rest of the stretch. But regardless of what happens, it looks like on-field performance, head-to-head matchups, and basically getting rid of East Coast bias are going to be the 3 main keys for this committee. It's going to be exciting to see what happens the rest of the year. But I've never trusted a CFP committee before, but I have about a 40% trust in here, which is high for a CFP committee. I have a pretty high amount of trust in this committee to do the right thing. So make sure you watch my video on my suggestion for a new format that would be better than this current format for the CFP committee. But main point overall, this is a pretty good top 25 here. Looking forward to next week. Thanks for watching this video. If you're not already, make sure you, if you're not already, I gotta stop doing the at the end of the videos. I do this every week. If you are not already, please make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue.